Hi, everyone. My name's Anjali Ayer. I work with Feldman Architecture. We are a San Francisco-based firm, and we specialize in doing high-end single-family residences. So it's a pretty elite market of people that we work with, but the firm's always been focused on what it takes to move the needle on all things sustainable. And we've done projects that are LEED certified buildings. We've explored the gamut of and dabbled with all the existing certification systems that are out there. Over a period of time, we've built a brand where we attract like-minded clients by putting the aspiration to be sustainable and make a positive impact on our communities and our industry through our work. That's attracted like-minded people, and that's been a big part of why we do what we do. The Living Building Challenge has been on our radar for at least a decade, and we've been waiting for a client that will come and ask us the question, what is the best thing out there? Or at least speak to some aspirations that can help us nudge them in the direction of taking on this Moby Dick when it comes to all things sustainable. So that happened to us on a project that I'm working on that I happen to be managing around 2.5 years ago. And we got approached by these really wonderful clients who came to us with a really beautiful site in the Santa Lucia Preserve in Carmel. And their ask was they want to be stewards of the environment. They want to know what is the most graceful and less impactful way in which they can carve out a home for themselves and the community of people that they want to have over and enjoy this beautiful, bountiful site with. They wanted to know what is it that they can do to create an interior and exterior environment that goes over and beyond any of the existing certifications. They were against having any products to do with animal cruelty. They were high on indoor air quality, interior environment. That was a huge priority. They wanted to be as close to being off-grid as possible and regenerative. That was a big word. And regenerative is one word that I really associate with LBC and what the ILFI is trying to do. So we presented it to them and said, do you guys want to go on this journey with us? We are not experts in this field. We have been really invested in rolling up our sleeves and gaining knowledge about what the priorities are in terms of climate action. We're really focused on carbon, which we've identified as the biggest driver and the biggest thing that architecture and architects and the building industry can work towards tackling. And we have incredible tools that we use as part of our design process that allow us to really design buildings from first principles and then go really deep into creating high-performance buildings in terms of understanding and researching what are the different products out there that do good, that perform the best that they can, that's out there. So they said, let's do it. So the project I'll talk you through in the end of this slide deck is a project called Curveball. It's currently under construction. And yeah, I would say we are probably 10% or 15% through the process. So I'm no expert by any means. I've been cramming for the past 2 years on all things to do with LBC. So I'm just going to share what I know. And I'm going to tell you, if you ask me a question that I don't know an answer to, I'm going to say, I can find out for you. OK, how many people are familiar with LBC here in this room? Can I see a show of hands? That's awesome. That's great. So this is the mantra here. It's time to create a living future and a world of living buildings. What's a living building? That was a question that was posed sometime in, I think, the mid-90s over a project called the Epicenter that was built in Bozeman, Montana. They engaged with Jason McLennan, who is considered the founder of the whole concept of a living building and the current principles that drive the framework of the Living Building Challenge. So through mid-1990s all the way through 2006 is when the first version of a living building and the framework was launched with the creation of the ILFI. I should probably pause and talk about a few more things. One thing worth mentioning is the biggest distinction between, I would say, any of the other certification systems we've seen today and LBC is most of the certifications have their place, and their biggest ask is, what does less bad look like? How do we negate what's bad? While the position of ILFI is, it's time for climate action. What does good look like? What is the definition of sustainability? Sustainability means something that can sustain itself endlessly. It means it's giving as much as it's taking, while most buildings today take more than they give. And that's something that we're challenging today. We want to design buildings that have their own utilities, that are independent in terms of their energy needs, and that are not discharging waste that they cannot manage on their own. So that's the whole premise of LBC. Certifications, so the tallest one out there, the far right, that's a full living certification. The organization is pretty simple. It's performance-based. So unlike other certification systems, there are no checklists. It's really based on what's considered as 7 petals. That's what they call it. Each petal has X number of imperatives. There are 20 imperatives in total. And it's outcome-based. So the difference is you are not going to be able to get a certification or even get to a process of challenge after the completion of the project. What is measured is your outcome. So it's something that you see play out, and then you get declared as a living building. So the last one out there, as you see, you have to hit all 20 imperatives. It's the methodology of how you hit the imperatives is totally up to the design teams to figure out and work out. They're not telling you how to get to it. They're not advising best practices. They're just saying, you guys figure it out and tell us how you comply. Pedal certification, this is something that was introduced pretty recently, where I would say let me start with core first. So for our project, that's the certification that we're chasing. The one in the middle, core, is a very recently introduced certification system, which ILFI realized was something that needed to bridge the gap between current green building systems and what the aspirations of the full certification are, because they realized that it was just too challenging and there were really too many limitations that left out a healthy bulk of projects that would otherwise exist within the living building universe. So core was something that was very recently rolled out. What's the difference between core and full certification? Core essentially needs you to hit all the 7 petals, but you're dealing with 10 imperatives versus 20 of them for full certification. Petal certification, what the petal certification does is it takes some of the most challenging aspects of some of the most challenging petals, which is water, energy, and materials. So those are 3 petals, which typically is what make people back out from full certification. So it gives people the opportunity to hit all the core imperatives and then go for a full core certification and then add a petal of a water or energy or materials. Our hope for curveball is we hit core and then we also go for the energy petals and the materials petals. 2 other relatively easy certifications that are available is zero carbon, which really is about offsetting the entire carbon that your building is consuming, both in terms of operational as well as embodied carbon. No combustion allowed on any Green Building Challenge project. Zero energy, this one's pretty obvious, 100% building energy load offset with on-site renewables, and pathways for premium on-site renewables for certain project types. Living buildings in every climate zone and every country. So again, because of the fact that the framework is so abstract, it can be adopted across any part of the world, and they make it appropriate for their regional context. any building project, be it new construction, existing buildings, interior projects, any scale of buildings, offices, hospitalities, educational, single-family homes. So the framework really allows any design professional, any AEC industry professional to get on board with the agenda here. I just put in those graphs here, that pie chart there, because that was interesting and that was relevant for us. So the top one, square footage of US building stock by type. Over 80% of buildings are residential, of which a huge bulk of them, I think, there are single-family homes. So this was another very compelling reason why we said this really is the right type of certification that we want to pursue, because we don't see the certification as something that applies just to one project. We see it as a basis to embark on a journey of discovery and carry over all the benefits that come from one project after another onto the rest of our body of work. So a big part of what the Living Building Challenge does, which I haven't touched upon yet, is the first priority is, I guess, sorry, I'm blanking. Am I wrapping up? Am I late? Okay. So really, I think the first thing to say is it's a philosophy, and then it's about advocacy and making more and more people get on board with the agenda, and the certification is the least important thing. So even if you're not getting the certification, we don't necessarily see this as a failure. Last couple of slides here. Again, this is a good one that captures, the difference between where code's at, where green systems are right now, and then you get high-performance building. So you're kind of going net zero towards negative impact, and then your LBC really gets into what you'd call as positive impacts. The diagram there essentially again shows there is a very healthy cyclical process by which every Living Building Challenge team shares their experience, and that's what gets rolled into standard updates, which happen every couple of years. It's a philosophy, certification, and advocacy tool for projects to move beyond merely being less bad and to become truly regenerative. These are the petals: place, water, energy, health and happiness, materials, equity, beauty. Last slide here. Couple things to touch upon. Red list free. This is such an important topic because, again, materials, they're all over in terms of that we are vetting thousands of materials for every small building that one puts out there, and there's so much toxicity in it. So just to have a forum where you have a list and a label, a declare label, which tells you immediately what the impact of your product is. This is a huge endeavor for ILFI, which is something that really helps with vetting your materials for any project that you use it in. The third piece comes from an angle of equity and justice and fairness and how we operate in this community. That's called a just label. We just got ours. This is the nutrition label, which speaks to how each of you operate as a firm, and we're just putting ourselves out there and saying, okay, this is how we are at, and this is where we're at, and this is how we're going to keep holding ourselves accountable and how we are going to grow and evolve as a firm. So these are all pieces which are really unique to being part of the ILFI universe, which really stitch together a story of why we see this as the path forward. Last slide. That's curveball. So again, it's capturing all the different things that we're trying to tackle with this one building, which, as you can see, is a really pristine-looking site, and how can we be positive in terms of impact versus negative by good design and by good engineering and innovation by the overall team. Thank you.